You are entering the supreme night experience. A journey like no other. Hitting that vibe that makes you go all night. Prepare yourself. Creating that love within your soul. This beauty you just want to share. You are now about to be a part of the Supreme Team. You are the Supreme Night Experience. Now and forever, wherever you are.
Welcome to Supreme Night Stream. Let's build together. A wonderful community. Helping each other. On a beautiful journey. Welcome to Supreme Night Stream. You are now on the Supreme Team. Welcome to Supreme Night Stream. Let's build together. A wonderful community. Helping each other. On a beautiful journey. Welcome to Supreme Night Stream. You are now on the Supreme Team.
You are entering the supreme night experience. A journey like no other. Hitting that vibe that makes you go.
Yeah, what's up? Just want to do this real quick. I mean, I was thinking about this. I wasn't going to really say too much or whatever. But I'll just get down to it. Because there's a lot of scenarios, I'm talking about. And the more I speak, I'm not entirely correct about anything, I mean, and no one person can be. But we are in democracies. We have a lot of minds that could put, that could resolve a lot of problems, And our history and the nuclear age, we prevented nuclear attacks by doing everything we can to prevent nuclear attacks. That's what we did. It wasn't some phrase of like, we just can't get into nuclear Armageddon because, it'd be catastrophic or whatever. Everybody just sort of goes, okay, we won't do it. It's because we did everything to prevent it. And that's always the case. And that should be the case right now. We do everything to prevent it, But that being said, some people probably already made the decision. And I don't think that's my best guess. He made a decision already to either use it or not. And my thinking, he will. If given the opportunity, he will. If he sees that he can win, he will definitely use them. So he needs to be told that he will not win regardless, even if he uses them. That's the only deterrence. And that he will not be the leader of his country. He will not be alive. The country will, he will not have any territory in Ukraine. And he will gain nothing from it. And that's the deterrence. You know, you could say, well, it's more basic than that. We a lot more nuclear weapons over there. But the thing about it is, we don't understand nuclear weapons, you know, the general public, whatever. But they're not as effective as people think. Do they have the potential to wipe out society? Yeah. Will they? No. But they have a real possibility of doing so on scale, you know? And the reality of it is, like a lot of these nuclear weapons could make a lot of areas of Ukraine uninhabitable, but we'll figure that out because you remove the topsoil. Second, I got my voice activation transcribing everything, and I was just trying to make notes on one possible attack into Russia after nuclear bombardment. And there's several, you know, and there's a lot of sound ways to attack Russia while you're bombarded by nuclear weapons. If I was Ukrainian, and defend Ukraine, and to go. So all those things we did in the past should also be put into play to stop nuclear exchange. You know what I'm saying? And but the thing about it is, we live in a different era, and I think, unfortunately, we live in this time where we think us as people, maybe we believe in these people that have like godlike intellects and everything, and they just know so much. And I guess at a time, Putin thought he was, and people viewed Putin as he was that, and he could win no matter what. Now, and the fact of the matter is, what is happening is this pure aggression and trying to make people back down by acting like you're the toughest person on the block only works so much. I mean, I don't want to bring up, like, you know, looking at Hitler, but he attacked his neighbors with real aggression by surprise. And once he lost that surprise, once people basically figured out that he's going to attack no matter what, people teamed up on him and be like, no, fuck this shit, you know, and he was crushed. Same thing with Napoleon. Same with all these other people that think like they juxtapose pure aggression for some kind of godlike intellect. And it's just not the case. It's when people come together and think, formulate a solution where all the people involved will come out and succeed. And this teamwork, this unity, this community will always be more powerful than any one single person, no matter what, even if they're like Einstein or, you know, whatever, you know, Leonardo da Vinci or anything. It's just a simple fact. And you can't get around that, but we don't. It's just one mind. And we all fall in the realm of the same intellect, more or less. And some push up the top of boundaries, but as soon as you get a good group of people together, they're always outdo that one person. But we still think like, okay. And then in that mentality has this narcissism that we can outthink, we can outdo, we could win because we're just this super aggressive person, really, you know? And that's basically what we're facing. So anyways, I don't want to get into the whole psychology of everything. Like I said, I could be wrong about a lot of things, but that's my general thinking. And this can be matched, you know. But the deterrence is, my thinking before nuclear weapons. If I could say like a couple steps ahead of Putin, whatever, would be as Ukrainians come in and as Ukrainians retake territory, they're going to capture what they're doing now in key places, knowing where they could defend, make strong points. Like every major city would be like on Kyiv. Like picture Kyiv as like a castle, you know. I got a lot of Spanish blood, and when I was younger, I loved castles. I read encyclopedias all the time, and everything. And then part of my family was like, "Why is this dark guy? Why you get adopted first off? Why does he like castles?" And then Italian side, what are we talking about? And Spain, that's where castles got invented. Or, you know, but what is he, Boorish or whatever? No, he's Spanish. He's native. You know, he's Navajo. You know, Hopi. So of course they're, you know, that's why they built castles to go against the Moors and everything. So I was like, so that side of the family, Italian, was usually the side of the family that really defended me a little bit more. I mean, it's the same thing with the German side too, but you know, this had this fascination with actually a particular part of castle fortifications was the building of the bulwarks on top of, when you see a castle, it's not really what it looked like because there's all this woodworking on it, you know, and everything that they built before they were attacked. Anyways, so if you figure every city is going to be like a castle. Every smaller town is going to be like a keep because Russia, for all intents and purposes, doesn't have like air total dominance and Air Force that could take out a lot of trench works and everything else of this nature. I mean, it can, but not to the effect that total air superiority can. So we do, in fact, have some aspects of trench warfare. So instead of making a trench that runs from... Okay, the length of the trench of World War I was 450 miles. Almost, was it 450 miles? Okay, yeah, okay. So almost 1,000 kilometers from the top of, let's say, it wasn't really Calais, but Belgium to Switzerland, right? And odd things were around Switzerland to guard the flanks and everything, you know, all these politics and everything. Kind of weird, kind of interesting. I always read, like, what really happened around the Swiss part of the trench when it ended, you know? Why don't you just go around, you know? I always write up shit like that. And what they did, they circled the trench works over here, and what Swiss did and everything. But now we have trench... Now we have, not trench war, now we have battle lines that extend even further than, not the Western Front, but the Eastern Front of World War I, trench, whatever. Trench warfare. And you can't really do it like that amount of trenches because they get bypassed, because you can overrun it, but we do have some aspects of trench warfare because it's a lot of ground battle and you don't have a lot of armored vehicles are being nullified, you know, by anti-tank weapons, and there's a couple other factors. In the fields, armored is going to be a lot more powerful, but once you enter an urban environment, it's basically a fortified position where trench works and other defensive works do have a lot You have a lot more effectiveness, whatever. So every major city, population place, I'm not going to give a number on it, that just has a set amount of infrastructure, and a lot of subterranean basements could act as a fortified castle, basically. You put systems of trench works like they did in Kyiv. And that's where they're capturing, that once the million people come in, that each of these towns would support the next town over. That'd be the best way to actually do it. The ones, if they're clustered or whatever, the best way to, as they come in. And then you do your damage, and then you pull back into the next fortified town or whatever, everything in between the countryside, you're not going to really be able to hold, but you could hold those towns a lot longer. I'm going to use the bathroom real quick. I'm just getting what cities are before I get into what I was about to say. Why I'm stating that. 5 a.m. alarms going off. Anyways, so get these. So they're recapturing places they know they could hold. That cut off, the Russian army and everything. And my thinking would be that you would get these towns that you have or you can defend, and that's if you even want to put up more fortifications. You would want to start inward, fortify. You work your way out, to more fortify the areas that you do control, and just keep out. You got to out and build your defensive structures more so than the Russians, and be more disciplined and organized and trained. And even now, when you have reserve troops of Ukrainians, you want to take the ones that have combat experience, and you want to move the ones, you want to intermix the ones that are were best train, force multiply those people, and get those people right now up at the front or whatever, so they have combat experience. So you're learning and training combat experience faster than the Russians, and in effect, you outnumber the Russians. And that's what basically was happening. When they put a pincer up, they're surrounding that one area, and all those guns and equipment, people are focusing in on a smaller group. So in that small region, they're outnumbering the Russians and they're crushing them. Because it's a fallacy to think that one man is super harder, tougher, aggressive than the next person. It's just all relative, and it does count, the mindset and everything else like that. But you got to take the totality of everything, the equipment, the amount of people, and the tactics, also. But that, again, that brings into outnumbering and beating them in detail. And this is what a lot was discovered during the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleonic Wars, and that was taking to heart to unify Germany, with Clausewitz and a lot of other people figured out. So, but you had a small German city-state, and they had to really think, how do we, battle another city-state in Germany? And so it got really technical and deadly, That's my personal opinion. But anyways, so but I think Ukraine's a little lax on building fortifications along rivers and that kind of thing. Like, are we giving them barbed wire, and do we really want to mine the river systems? Yeah. I'm hesitant to state that, because I don't really want to think about the future because of all the minefields and everything, but yeah, you need to. Because you know where they're going to cross and how they're going to outnumber you and outflank you, So, knowing that, you could prepare for the outflanking a little bit better, But, having more drones up, those huge, powerful drones, will definitely make a huge impact without a lot of bigger military equipment. But the biggest concern I have, if nuclear weapons if nuclear weapons are not used, and these million people come in, 100,000, 300,000 people come in, is that the longer they're there, they're going to learn how to fight. Because you still have Donetsk and Luhansk, whatever, the territorial units still fighting at the front. They're very effective. For all intents and purposes, And they're not like diehard soldiers. So basically, I don't know what they are. Were they conscripts or whatever? Coerced into fighting, and now they fight. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how it started, because now they're fighting at the front and pushing Putin's agenda. But my point is that you took a force that wasn't Spetsnaz, and now they're fighting alongside and being as effective, give or take. That's because they were there and they were forced to learn. So if you have a static thing of 100,000 people coming in and it's a static engagement, they're going to learn quickly. That's what I'm concerned about. That's why Ukrainians need to find out where they come in and push deep into them so they don't have the chance to learn. And it's the smartest thing to do. Because if you just keep calling them, perception is like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They're not going to learn what they're doing. And you got to attack them before they learn it. Instead of just saying, well, pumping your guys up was like, well, these are green people. Attack them while they don't know what they're doing. You have to find out those units pushing deep, where you can find out other pincer places, wherever the pincer in, surround them, cut them off, and grab material. And when they come in, your main objective is to do that and probably make a good beeline to what you did over here, like the supply hubs, and capture tanks. Like, you see a place where there are this stockpiling tanks, whatever, we have to go in there and make a raid in there, grab all the tanks and pull them out. That type of thing. Because you want to make it to the point where they don't have any equipment. It's just 100,000, 200,000 people on the ground with no equipment. But you have the equipment It's basically just people walking towards you with a gun. You know what I'm talking about? And you can deal with that way better than you can deal with people in tanks and other heavy equipment. So, I mean, people don't understand. I don't think that, you know, the common public understands that even if you put 100,000, a million people in, if they're mostly on the ground walking with an AK-47 or whatever, dilapidated AK-47, it's not really what you think. 100,000 people. It's just people. You know what I'm talking about? Just a mob against a more disciplined fighting force. But it's still a lot of people, you know. Anyways. But like I said, you don't want to push in deep before they learn how to fight or whatever and get that experience, and just constantly be even more aggressive before they learn. So you just take out their combat effectiveness early on and you grind them down. And you commit more heavy equipment to that initial phase, you know, of these inexperienced troops and everything. But my thinking is, you know, you have to slow it down because there's no way you could militarily attack, you know, a million people, we'll say. I guess that's my go-to amount, even though that's what he wants. Is he going to put 100,000 in? I don't know. Like I said, there's no way I could know everything. Or any one person, really. But in siege warfare, historically, they didn't really try to. We read about when they attacked. That's all. As men, as people, I guess, or even writers, historians, we care about the attacks. When did they go and attack after the siege or these battles? But a lot of it was this cold-bloody, you know, soulless, starving them out. He's going after, you know, the fighting ability, you know, this, you know, you see on these sieges dysentery and everything constantly, you know, disease, and they poisoned the wells. They did everything to go after the food supply, the water supply, so they couldn't fight. Use their numbers against them. You know what I'm talking about? And then you come in and attack them. It's very rare, but like, oh, we're so honorable. We'll go out in the open field and battle and have our chivalry against them. War in itself is not a chivalrous thing. It is a brutal, bloody, it's just evil. So to expect Ukraine to constantly meet at them one-on-one, you know, as a military engagement, this is where you want to get into the more of this of historically verified tactics. You have to go after the food supply. You have to go after the power stations. I mean, they're already going after the fuel, you know, fuel trucks and everything. But now this is where, as these people come in, there's 100,000, 200,000, million people, you need to go after all the power, all the food, any food and clothing, and extend that out to any kind of manufactured goods that indirectly support the war effort. Starting with the avenues approaches of that 100,000 million people coming into Russia. Like, oops. Clicked the wrong thing. So we got Russia. All right. So in Belgorod, not Belgorod, is that Belgorod? So all this in here, especially along these road systems, that power needs to be taken out. Any place where, there is a grocery store or food market needs to be taken and burnt. All the food needs to be burnt. Thrown into a pile and just lit up. Any store is just lit up. There is nothing that the army could use or indirectly use. And take the fuel, power station, just completely needs to be destroyed where they can't repair. You can't go after one piece of repair one and the other. And I think the beginning of November would be the best because, the deep of winter will hit around December. So, depending how effective you are taking out of the power stations, they'll feel it more. So, you started, let's say November, October, in a month, you can prepare, start taking out the power stations. That's the only way because you have to slow them down before they get to you. And with these nuclear teams that are coming in, they need to have a total blackout so they know what they're getting into. They know they cannot win even with nuclear weapons. That's what they need to know. That the only way the Russian people are going to succeed is if they change their country to democracy. The only way it's not an ultimatum. We want to give them ultimatums. We want to be hardcore and give them ultimatums. So our way, we're so smart, we could coerce people to do this, and it's all bullshit. And I guess me being narcissistic as young, you sort of figure out things, and you think to yourself, you have the Superman complex that you're above all this. I guess a little bit hubris in my nature, but the fact of the matter is, you don't want to control people. You want them, and I'm far from perfect, but I know what's right and what's effective. And the furthest I got was letting people use their best intelligence for the betterment of everybody, and where it would benefit me the best. And I didn't try to tell them what to do or anything like this. But you don't give people ultimatums. So the Russian people have a choice. They could either join me, the West, in democracy, or they could choose to make the Russian people suffer. It's just a simple fact. It's not an ultimatum. It's not a threat. There's no way you can control information like you did in the past and be like, oh, one man's super smart. He's all for Russia. There's nothing wrong with loving your race, loving your culture, loving your nation. Nothing wrong with it. Saying that you're white, that you're black or Latino, native. But once those rights and that pride interferes with the freedoms of your neighbor or the person next to you, that's when it becomes an issue. You know? And that just comes through experience. And maybe it's hard for some people to wrap their head around, because you could have a lot of, there's nothing wrong with it. Once you think you're simply better than someone else because of how you were born, and that's the only quality, there's a problem. I can see how someone says, oh, I have a Paget's disease. Oh, I get that. Okay. But to state, color of your skin or whatever, and take any other qualities than I do have, it's just, this is where our divides come in. But to say that you can't take away, anybody's, who they are, you just, me being naive, you can't take that away. I have a lot of, my confidence is based on it. But I know that it can never, I don't want to become what I'm fighting against, biases and racism, so I don't want to impede on other people. So I have the right to be proud of it. They have the right to be proud of who they are. Do we go about it correctly all the time as Americans? No. But we have a system of government that knows you would take the better way to go about it. And then we should all be equal, pursuit of happiness. We all found it better, we'd be all better, but none of us are perfect at it, And that's the way, the world community needs to go towards democracies. So there's nothing wrong with being Russian, but once you start to subjugate another country and your ego and pride is based on, there's a problem, obviously, there's a war. And to any American, these are other Slavic people, and they feel like they could kill, torture, conquer another Slavic people. What do they think about other people? Finnish, Polish, Georgian, German, English, Spanish, us, they're really their own people, you know what I'm saying? Anyways. But in our ignorance and hubris, we think we're this special people that, no, that it's just all about these people, this small group of people and their ambitions. And we just want that perception of being the best, the in power that coerce and control people. And the more you do, the more you really don't, because the more people will push up against it. And so for me, I learned to let people open up their minds. And you tell people the truth and have them be better informed. But why was I talking about the towns as fortified positions? But that's what's basically going to happen. We discovered, or already have discovered, that we're going to fully entrench every major population center. Redouble our fortifications, our defenses around there to really grind out the enemy more. Because we want to be an aggressive force, but those are places that we could hold better and create more damage. And that's some aspect we do have to grind them down. And the sense of non-attrition, we do have to do, attrition has the connotation of just a slow thing, but it has to be more dynamic than that, capturing these places where we really do the most damage. Okay, but getting beyond that, I'm going to get beyond that to just using this city as an example. I mean, the example of a non-nuclear, a Ukraine-only attack after a nuclear exchange, and there's several ways to actually do it, and that's the thing, that this thing is already basically over because you now could be able to boil Ukraine. And that's the biggest thing. So what's going to happen is now we have these fortified cities, and we have to do that. We have to make these defenses. So, guess I don't want to state it, but so you got these nuclear weapons coming in, low yield, whatever they are, I don't know, but on the move, on railways. Is it stable rambling? I don't know, but that's all politics and everything. Why everything's politics? For all intents and purposes, let's say they are used. What are the targets? It's going to be these fortified positions, grouped up soldiers, and the most heavily defended areas. So they're going to systematically try to eradicate Ukrainians, city by city. I don't know how they're going to go about it. Maybe they'll go after Kyiv, Lviv, and most, maybe, the nuclear power stations also. And as well as up at the front to use it, to break the front lines, to make breakthroughs in the front lines. However they're going to do it. But more than likely, they're going to systematically destroy the Ukrainian military and population. And it's going to be focused to some extent on where the military, where they're going to do the most damage to the military. In these cities that they fortify. So that's my rationale. That's my thinking. And that's why I brought up he's just sort of forced to fortify these cities and to capture places that could be the most defended. And the good thing about capturing some of these places that if you could create more damage, you could put in more troops to defend it and then pull them out and use the other fortified positions to cover that retreat or whatever. But it's okay. So now, getting back to if he attacks with nuclear weapons. Attack with nuclear weapons. So he used them. He's going to find out the Ukrainians are not capitulating. So he's going to have Russians go into that contaminated zone to push out the Ukrainians that now are in contaminated zones and holding the ground because he didn't kill. Because they're just not effective as you think they are. They're going to survive in there. So now the Russian military is engaged in there. To some extent. killing more Russians, destroying their lives forever. Where those winds go, it's going to go all over that whole region. Belarus mostly. Eastern part of Ukraine. Stalingrad. Just that whole region. But that's not what I'm getting at. As I stated, that line is now crumbling, like on World War One, extended about almost 1,000 miles. The front lines is now, again, just about the same length. It's not the same. All I'm saying is it's just a very long line. That's what I'm saying. And one of the lines is just crumbling. And the same World War II, World War One. The whole, how can I say this? It's a ground warfare. And it's really hard to wrap your mind around this. I mean, there's drones, there's attack aircraft and everything, but if a lot of it's on the ground. And same in World War One. It's not static like it is by any sense of the means. I'm not getting into that aspect at all. So just remove that out. So that's just the one little, well, actually it's a big thing. But I want people to sort of realize how archaic it is. Because there's no tanks. There's armored vehicles, so it's just, it's a lot of ground warfare. There's not enough tanks, so a lot of armored vehicles, but and a lot of it's been nullified because how Ukrainians are able to take out the Russian vehicles quickly, so on one side you have armored vehicles, the other is it's a collapsing heavy equipment thing. So again, like it's more of they're fighting in like a World War One type of thing. If that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to get at. And the whole static nature of World War One, this someone that's not informed, I don't want to like hold up and get into these small little arguments or whatever, but that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so after this nuclear exchange, not actually exchange, after they drop their nuclear weapons on Ukraine, there's so many ways to retaliate back without using nuclear weapons. There's so many. And just from me and what I know about as a amateur military tactical historian that just read encyclopedias and other things, what I could discern. And you had this whole battle line in Ukraine. And what you do, you would just totally bypass it. You form up in battle groups in relatively short order. And you go after where they're not. And you just totally flank them. Go right after Moscow. And then you have another group going up to Petersburg. The main group is going to Moscow. The secondary force is going to St. Petersburg. And it's very doable. And then you have a third force coming out of Lviv. Because as you go out, Russia's going to start to panic. And probably at gunpoint tell Vilashchenko to protect Moscow. So they're going to race out of Belarus as fast as they can. And as they leave Belarus or whatever, or attack down to create pressure, go after Minsk. And allow them to penetrate some distance into Ukraine no matter what. You just outflank them. And you do the same what you're doing. And that will stop guard your flank from Belarus. And you're thinking, well, that's not possible. Oh, it's perfectly possible. This is when you commit tanks and more armor equipment to it. Oh, they can't get there. Well, there's going to be the bulk of the fighting force is already in Ukraine. And you concentrate enough force, there's nothing to stop them going right up to Moscow right now if they chose to. There's nothing. What is stopping them? Logistics? It'll be like going across a desert, really, because it's equipment, right? They need fuel, so every gas station is like a well. You suck it dry. You go up to that well, to the next well, to the next well, next well, all the way up to Moscow. So you want to map out every fucking well. And then on the sides, you have raiding parties go out, taking all that fuel. To the main army group or whatever, right? And you have a lot of gas, just like 5-gallon gas tanks you take also with you. You get them all up in very short order. And what you do is as you sent out those raiding parties, as you go up to Moscow, they're taking out grocery stores and power stations. So anything coming in will just have a complete blackout as you head up to Moscow. And then once you capture Moscow, you start digging in. You start your raiding parties again, capture fuel, food. Then you just make everything totally black out. All the power stations around Moscow completely annihilated. So anything approaching in is guarded. You know what I'm talking about? And there's going to be nothing that could relieve it. And you hold it. And do what you need to. You arrest everybody, change over the government. And it's not that hard. I could come up with it. I, as a citizen of the United States, amateur historian, military that can. And that's just one scenario. Every external person, military training person in Ukraine, everybody that's not in Ukraine training into foreign countries, into England, Germany, France, wherever, the best thing they need to do is after they get attacked is to actually, I don't know if the Finns want to get involved in Norway. If you don't want to use that territory to form up over here in Helsinki, over here, east of Helsinki, you come down on Petersburg. And you actually have an amphibious landing in small fisherman boats, whatever, cargo ships and anything. And you just land, boom. An expeditionary force coming to St. Petersburg, as that force is coming up to Moscow. And then you send out another force and use this as come up here and supply it, and then eventually get support by heavy equipment coming up. And why those are the not imperial cities, but they're the federal districts that control basically all the politics of Russia. And you sever it, and you captured all of Russia, all 5 whatever time zones for the fuck it is, of Russia. So they gambled and they crapped out. That's using no nuclear weapons and only Ukraine. You know what I'm talking about? They could do it. Granted, it would be more effective is once they have the nuclear exchange, we just start trucking in tanks, non-stop trucking tanks, tanking in tanks, railing in tanks non-stop. It would be a lot more effective. But and there's other ways to go about it. Not even using after a nuclear exchange, using non-nuclear weapons, just using Ukraine. So that's what I'm getting at. We got to do everything to prevent nuclear war. Because if you don't even understand, even if like Finland got involved, they're the capture of St. Petersburg like this. You know what I'm talking about? Like done. That's just one other country involved. If Finland gets involved, Sweden's going to get involved. So it's like, hold up, we'll join NATO. Hold up, just give them 6 months. All right, we got this. Saying we got to do something for Ukraine. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I mean? So you got Norway and Sweden. Not in NATO or whatever. They're that's just one other country. Now, then if you have Georgia pushing up from the south also. But you don't even understand. I mean, the non-nuclear response if NATO comes in. I mean, it would be. I don't want to say matter of hours, saying as one general said, but it's just crazy to think you can even win military at all, It is a lost cause. But honestly, what we should do, I guess, all runs purposes, we should know who ordered the nuclear weapon. We know who ordered Putin, all the people that turned the key, and all that stuff. We just start landing people and start arresting them for crimes against, humanity. You know what I'm saying? But now we'll quickly, and we force a regime change. It already needs to have a regime change. There's this, not in the negative connotation as we do. We need a regime change or whatever, like in the Middle East or whatever. It just needs to be democracy. There's no one else in power, no one else that we sort of get along with. It needs to be a group of Russians that do not want to subjugate other Russians and other people, or neighbors, or anything like that. That's the only way to have, not have nuclear attacks or be threatened by nuclear weapons. It's the only way. It's the only way. The time to admit that is now as people. I mean, politically you can't state that. But Russia needs to become a democracy. That's it. people would be better off. We don't have to worry about war. And the thing is, we could do that now. We could have a lasting peace for 100 years, even for a millennium, if Russia becomes a democracy, if we handle it right here and now. So that's just one scenario. Just remember, it's this heavy equipment. Is the only thing I'm concerned about is going up to Moscow, is fueling gas station to gas station, capturing it, draining it, leaving nothing, leaving no food, gas, or power, anything coming into Ukraine for 100 miles or 200 miles for as long as reach you could get into Ukraine and your attacking force as you're going up to Moscow. And you just completely bypass the Russian lines coming out of Kyiv, we're over here, and just rewind, mobilize all your reserves over in here. You want to get them out of Ukraine. So if they're keep dropping weapons on every population center, it's safer to be in Moscow. It's safer to be in Russia. It's when you become into an aggressive force. You're no longer a defensive force. You turn into an aggressive force. And, everything's off the table, basically. Well, I'm going to say off the table, but everything, but not attacking Russia directly is off the table. You have a specific goal to change it into a democracy. And find the people that wanted this war, and they got removed. You got to whatever form of government you want to deputinize the this whole hardliner thing into you know what I'm saying? But with this exodus of Russians, you see that there is an educated class that wants a democracy. So it's there because my hesitant to state to go into Russia is mainly based on the population itself deciding if it wants to become a democracy. Like, you don't want to go into another nation if they're going to act as if it's the population is going to be against you. So you want to hold back on that. But after a nuclear attack, you don't have that option. You have to go after Moscow. But that being said, after all that fallout falls on Russia, I mean, you can't cover that up. I mean, we don't live 50 years ago where you could just say, well, it's all Ukrainians' fault. No one's falling for this shit. Less and less people are following the Russian, party line, or whatever they call it, the propaganda, less and less. Is it going like this? How many people are listening to the truth? Is it, like a exponential curve, or is it significant? I don't know. I'm thinking it's definitely increasing. And maybe even after this, honestly, it's probably been our best interest not to use nuclear weapons back, because they prove to them they're going to know it was only Russian contaminating other Russians with this nuclear weapons. You're killing your own people. You're culling your own people. You're trying to thin out the Russian people. And if Putin's already thinning out the Russian people, these are people, man. You have to go after the food supply. You have to go after power. You just have to do it. There's no other way. This population is just too much. 1 million people, you have to do it. And we got to stop. We got to focus on being more altruistic to people who are altruistic back to us. Well, I guess that's sort of counter to the term. Give love, give aloha to people that will love you back. I'll give you aloha back, right? Or else it just goes into the fucking ground, and you're shooting yourself in the foot. That's why I got to pull everything out of China. Shooting ourselves in the foot. Make better connections with South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. See what's up with Vietnam. And completely isolate China. No commerce with it whatsoever. And use the population against them. Because their ego is based on a lot of it because of the amount of people they are. And they have this false ego of being smarter than we are. And it's ridiculous. And they're not. I'm not always right. I get humbled a lot of times. But when you get a lot of good people thinking together, always better than these fucked up people. I mean, it's always been the history. I mean, we don't have to reinvent the fucking wheel. You know what I'm talking about? We know what works. I could get in all this religious stuff, whatever. All the books that we read, it's this constant theme of caring, compassion, and building communities so much more powerful than attacking your neighbors. And when we diverge and go off on a tangent of interpreting that is when we fuck everything up. We know it works. He's not this all-powerful intellect, Putin. It needs to become a democracy. There's a lot of options after a nuclear attack. Ukraine could win. But Russians need to know that now that they used everything, the Ukrainians could do everything in their power to change it to a democracy to make themselves safe. And that is changing Russia into democracy, and they have the capability of doing it. So the Russians themselves need to make a decision. Join me, join Supremo, and become a democracy. And you get to govern yourselves. Or you could choose to make your people suffer more. To meet the threatened people, only will make you defensive and try to legitimize your hate, and your aggression and your need to enslave and kill other people. I give you a different option to be more free, more open. And to have a better life. That's your choice. I'm out. Peace. And love.